Hi, I'm Brittany Olson, and this is my digital portfolio for this quarter. In the first part, I will be going over a lesson with technology. In the second part, it will be technology students could use. The third part will be an observed technology lesson, and the fourth part will be a new technology tool. So since I'm currently an instructional assistant at my school and I don't have students, I chose the technology source quizzes to use, and I came up with the pros of it, ELL connections, possible challenges, and solutions. Quizzes is an online game site. It's a great assessment tool and it's fun and interactive. So if we look at the pros, it's available in 206 languages. You can pick the time for each question, 5 seconds up to 15 minutes even. You can even choose to have no time limit at all if you want to. It's multiple choice type questions and you can add in pictures. When a student is done answering a question, you can even have a meme pop up congratulating them or motivating them if they're not getting the answers right. You can add in standards for each question, which I think is a great tool if teachers are trying to keep track of what standard they're covering for that quiz. It collects data on each student for you, so then you can go back and see how each student did and put it in your grade book or go back and help that student if they're struggling. And then you can create memes on it. It's a game-like form, so the students get really excited playing it since it's like a game. It doesn't really feel like a quiz. And then students can work at their own pace, which is a great benefit. I took a screenshot of a quiz that I made about the alligator life cycle. So here you can see the question, you can see the two choices they can pick from, and I gave them 1 minute to answer this question. Again, you don't have to have a time limit, you can have no time limit. In my next picture, this is if you pause the game, so you can pause the game, you can look at the sound effects, the memes, there's different things that you can do, there's different languages, if you want to save and exit where you're at, so say you couldn't finish the quiz at the time, say the bell rang and the students had to leave, then you can have them pause the quiz, and then when they get back from their special, they can continue on with the quiz. For ELL connections, it's a formative and summative assessment. The standard for language of science was applied here since mine was on the alligator life cycle, hypothetically, and they I learned about this tool in my methods class. My teacher had a ton of technology tools that she incorporated that were fun and interactive. I didn't get to use it with my class personally, but after learning about it in her class, I thought I would give it a try. Some challenges are not having enough technology devices for students when needed, and students can see each other's results compared to everyone else because there is a leaderboard on the side of the screen. Some resources and solutions to this would be to make sure to rent the computer cart out beforehand. In my school, we have computer carts. We also have iPads, so another solution could be to combine iPad and computers if you don't have enough. And then the issue with the leaderboard, instead of the students' names, maybe assigning each student to an animal name so they're not seeing each other's names. Okay, let's move on to part 2. So for part 2, again, I do not have students for myself, so I hypothetically came up with something that I would do. So I chose Story Jumper. So if I had my own class, I would use Story Jumper with them. I think it is a great technology tool. Students can create their own digital book and get a hard copy made, which I think is amazing. My example that I made is a lesson on plants, so it's covering science. So if we look here, I have my book cover, which is my book about plants. I have my name, and I created this whole cover myself. And then I said this book is dedicated to my students. So on my first page, I said first plant a seed, then water your seed, watch your seed grow. My plant grew roots, a stem, and leaves. Next, my plant grew a flower, and then I have the end. Okay, so now let's move on to the pros of Story Jumper. So for the pros, it's fun and creative, and it's helping to motivate students. The tools are very simple to use. I can really see students catching on quickly once you show them how to use it. Multiple students can work on the same project at the same time, and that's great if they're doing a team project. Here's another picture I found of an example of Story Jumper. So there's many things you can do. Here you can see they wrote a bigger paragraph about a story, The Boy Who Cried Wolf. You can see on the side here the different props that they can implement within the book. So cons of Story Jumper: students have to remember to highlight left to right when changing the font, which is a little bit weird. When searching for props, students have to spell words correctly, which some students could struggle with. And there is no spell check, which is another issue. For ELL connections, this is covering listening, speaking, reading, and writing, since the students can listen to each other's story, they're speaking the story aloud, they can read each other's story silently if they want to, and they're writing their own story. It covers Standard 4, Language of Science, because my book was about plants, and it covers Standard 3, Language of Language Arts, because it's writing and reading. And for the technology standard, I said that it was covering creativity and innovation because it's a very creative thing that the students get to do. For solutions to some problems I could have, or for some improvements that I would say would be provide a graphic organizer before having the students write their story so they have a game plan instead of just having them jump on right away and start it. Provide word banks and a vocabulary book. And even for my ELL students, sentence frames, sentence starters, and those I think are even good for all students if they're really struggling to form a good sentence. And then even have a checklist, so when the student is done with their project or as they're completing their project, they're making sure to hit certain things on each page and certain things at the end when they're done. Okay, so part 3. So, and a lesson I observed was a first grade special ed ELL lesson. This is in our self-contained special ed room. The topic was language arts and reading skills. The program is called Early Reading Skills Builder, ERSB, and it covers decoding, segmenting words, blending, and sight words. The goal of the program is students will eventually learn how to read short stories with 2 to 3 sentences per page on their own. And that's at the very end of the program. So throughout the whole year, they are working on all these skills to reach this goal. So some pros would be it gives feedback right away to students. It's an informal and formal assessment, and it has visual and audio aspects throughout the lesson, which I think are really great. Here is a picture of what the students are seeing on their iPads. When the teacher that I observed teaches this, she has the children each working on their own individual iPad, and each child has their own account with their own little character that they have, so it records all the data that they're doing. And you can see that they're working on decoding, segmenting words, blending, and sight words. Some cons are change the wait time between levels. I really think that it jumps right away, and I think that it should give a break for the student, or even having a student redo a certain level if they didn't do so good, because it still has them move on pretty quickly. The voice that they use sometimes is unclear, especially with letter sounds, because when students are doing the letter sound section, it just has the letters at the bottom of the iPad, and then it has a blank line at the top, and the students have to pick it, and just hearing it through the iPad could be tricky for them sometimes. They only have one assessment at the end that decides whether the student passes a level or not. I mean, yes, it is recording data a little bit throughout the lesson, but it's not taking that data and making it the reason why they pass. So I don't think one question should be the reason. I think it should be multiple questions, and the teacher definitely still has to be present to help the students go through the program in case they click out of it by accident or they're having an issue for some reason. So that's another con. Here's another picture that you can see from the iPad. So ELL connections. This is Standard 3, Language of Language Arts. Standard 1, Social and Instructional Language, because they are talking and they're learning words, letter name, and sounds. The ELL students are learning vocab. And if a student gets something wrong the first time, it eliminates answers, so there's less to pick from, which I think is really good for when students are struggling on what answer to pick. Some improvements would be to have a full printout of all the data collected during that lesson. It would be great if the program did that. On the iPad, from what I observed, I did not see that feature. So I really think they should include that. The voice needs to be more clear in the app, and there needs to be a visual provided with the audio. So like I said, during the letter sound section, they're just saying it. I think they should be breaking down the word for them step by step first, and then having them do that. And then to make the app more student friendly, so the teacher doesn't always have to be present during the app usage. Again, it is kid friendly, but it's not at the same time, especially for the students that I was observing with. If they clicked out of it, or they did something wrong in the app and then it's frozen or something, I really think they need to make the app a lot more kid friendly. Okay, so for part 4, a new technology tool. I found this out from another student in our class, the Pixton Comic Maker. I think this is really awesome. It's from the Google Play Store, and the app is free, which I think is great. It is a comic story app creator, and the students can be really creative on the app, which I think is good. The features include background, characters, zoom, words, faces, and poses. So those are the different things they can pick from when creating their comic. Some of the pros of Pixton: it's searchable prop library with 2,000 plus objects, the styleable text, captions, and speech bubbles, and they also have flexible layouts with variable panel width and height, which is great, and there's facial expressions and poses. Here is a picture of one of the comics that I saw. So here you can see that they can put the speech bubbles in different places. The characters have different poses and expressions, and then different scenes that go along with each one. Some cons of Pixton are there too many options and choices for students, and students could spend too much time decorating instead of working on word bubbles. So since there's so many options, like they could get off task with decorating and facial expressions versus trying to type up what they're supposed to be doing. And then students who don't have strong phonics or vocab skills would really struggle. Here is another picture that you can see from the app. So here you can even see this character, she's winking. So you can really tell they have a variety of facial expressions. This character's legs are crossed, he's sitting down. So it's really nice, all the options they have. For ELL connections, it's standard 3, language of language arts. This covers listening, speaking, reading, and writing, because they're listening to each other read their comic, they're talking about it, they're speaking it out loud, they're reading it, and they're typing up and writing their own comics. It also is going to be covering vocab, sentence structure, punctuation, and fluency. Definitely I would provide for my ELLs maybe some sentence frames as well. So as I was saying, for improvements, word bank, vocab book, sentence frames, even sentence starters, paper, graphic organizer for planning beforehand, so they have an idea of what they want to do before even going on to the program. And I would even consider pairing lower level students with a partner if needed. If that student was really struggling with this tech tool or having a problem doing it, definitely pairing them with someone else that's higher level would be great as a partner project. And that is my portfolio.